Good afternoon and welcome everybody to this afternoon's webinar. My name is Nick. We also have Aaron here who will be demonstrating some features as well. Today we're going to cover universal cabinets within CabMaster Pro. We will be working in CabMaster Machining Premium version 11.1.0.121. This is the latest version of CabMaster Pro available to customers. Just so everyone is aware, this webinar is being recorded so that we can upload the video to our YouTube channel. If you have any feedback or suggestions, we'd really appreciate it after the webinar has finished. We will also be covering universals next week, but we will be asking for suggestions on what universal cabinet features you'd like to cover. And we'll go through them and draw some of your suggestions. So you can send us an email and give us some ideas. On the left-hand side of the webinar screen, there are tabs. You'll see Q&A up the top. Note that if you have a question, you can type it down the bottom. Questions will not be visible to anyone else until they have been answered. Please keep your questions related to the subject when not providing technical support within the webinar. We have Aaron and myself here today to answer your questions during the webinar. We'll also cover some of these questions at the end. Let's get started. So, arguably the defining feature of universals is the ability to add multiple divisions. So I'll do this. We'll start with a tool universal. I will remove the doors. I'm only removing the doors so that we can see what is going on. And I'll move that out of the way just there. The first place that you can find divisions within Tool Universal is under the cabinet details settings. You've got your main divisions here. You can add up to 4 here. They're vertical, and obviously it produces 5 sections. These divisions can be recessed all the way around. The gaps between the divisions can be altered or set as even. One is always going to be automatically calculated. Note that this is the width between the divisions. It's not center to center. Each of these divisions will produce a new area and content down the side. And in each of these, you'll also now find the option for horizontal and vertical divisions. We can add them in. And again, the distance between, that value is between, it is not center to center. You can untick that to make them uneven. You can remove the physical part. Remains, yes. Okay. So now if we go to labor and construction, and we'll go select to divs, we'll see that we have the options to extend the divisions and the subdivisions to floor as well. Note that if you have a recess for your kicker in drawing properties, it's also going to automatically recess that in your divisions. Here you'll also find the option to chamfer the top. So for example, here we'll put in 100. We'll go 100 there, and we'll say 200 here. So this works exactly the same way as it does with ends. It is the vertical offset is 100. The horizontal offset is 200, and then the vertical is 100 from that point there to that point there. You can then also, of course, do the bottoms the same way. You don't have the vertical offset option for bottoms. That might be because I've done that. because I haven't added subdivisions. That would be why. So we'll go back to Area 1 content, and we'll put in our vertical subdivisions. Sorry about that. And as you can see, there's our angles there. The next thing we need to quickly cover is the materials. Main division, which are these big ones, is just division. Subdivision is these smaller ones, and then shelf division is the horizontal ones, which we currently have physically turned off. For horizontal divisions, the machine face can be set in shelf fix, which is just there. And you change that to bottom or top. Here you'll find various construction methods for your hole settings for your horizontal divisions also. And of course, to adjust the construction hole settings for main divisions and vertical divisions, we can do that in div, just there. It's worth noting that some of these construction settings can also be found for many other components of the universal carcass. If you want to turn any of these parts of the carcass off, you can do that in labor and construction. Select each one and just untick the part that you want to remove. I'll now hand over to Aaron to go over doors.
No. That one. Sorry about that. I'm going to close that one down. We're going to go through to explain the doors. I've already set up some simple cabinets that have divisions. Well, they don't really have divisions. They're basically going to be using the first one I'm going to discuss is the universal one. It includes a sliding door, which is different to all the other doors and every other cabinet in our entire collection. It is the only cabinet in our collection that does sliding doors, and you just turn it on by in the door panel, the door tab. Under doors, you just click sliding. And as you can see, it turns on a sliding door. If I look in the sliding tab, which is now created, this will allow me to change the quantity of it. It will allow me to extend it. It'll allow me to have it flush with the ends, door jambs. I can also, if I want to put this sliding door onto other cabinets, I can then basically turn off all the features of the cabinet itself. So by going into the usual thing of what a universal can do, turn off the sliding doors. I'll turn off all the other parts of it. So the ends, for instance. And I'm just left with the sliding doors if I turn off all the features. Sorry, just turning on machining view. Bear in mind that this, as a cabinet, will create the panels and the grooves in it, but it will not do any particular machining from any sliding doors. It's not entirely has much of the features of it. So I'm going to close that one down. That was only a brief interlude into the sliding door. We're now going to come to division doors. Now, division doors, as you can see, under the door category, you have doors, division doors, and cell doors. Now, division doors, if I turn on divisions, main divisions, each division door covers a different one. So if I turn them on, you can see you can have them over just divisions. Just turning them on. Actually, that's all going on the same one, but yeah. The division is basically a full horizontal division. Full vertical division are in that space. Oh, no matter how many horizontal divisions are in that space. So if I put horizontal divisions, these division doors will cover the entire space. And I'll turn it to 3D textured. You may need to edit the door and basically extend. As you can see, they cover the thing. If I put on, by going, say, to area 1 and putting in 2 horizontal divisions, notice how this, even though the door covers the entire area, it still has the divisions behind it. This differs from cell divisions. These cover every type of division you have. So if you put in, and I'm going to turn off these doors to start off with, I find it a good practice. The first thing I do when creating a universal is to turn off the doors. To go in, put in 2 main divisions, as you were shown before. I'm now going to go to area 1. I'm now going to put on 2 horizontal divisions. And I'm going to do the same, and I'm just putting in, I'm not changing any other values, I'm just putting in as stock standard. You can change these values as you want, but when you come to cell doors work a little bit different. You can put them on left or right or both. So if I put them on both sides, it will put them on as a dual door, but I can use every single cell. Notice how the last one is still a division, and I just turn them on as I want them to be. And the last one can be a division, a normal, basically like a div door. Well, it actually goes to a full door, even though it's not actually a division, it's actually a cell, because the cell is that entire area. These are that areas. I can change which side I want them to be. Now, this brings me on to the bit about out of that one. This brings me, I'm going to go back to the division door because I'm going to talk about hinges. Hinges are controlled under the hinges category of the machining. You have hinge and hinge 2. Now, hinge 1 basically decides where the hinges kick in on. You can also change the center distance for non-centered hinges. Hinge 2 controls the actual placement of each hole of each hinge. And you can change them as easy as doing this. And if you look there, that one has moved. Now you will notice that it will have centered the mid one here. You can change that to being 1130 because that's how much the centered hinge was again. It tries to center it between those 2 points is what that mid hinge does. But you can always set it back. This actually allows you to physically change where the hinge positions are. Lastly, I'm going to talk about the door gaps. Door gaps are literally controlled up here. They are controlled under the door tab of the universal cabinet. This also allows you to angle the tops of the doors. So if you wanted to put shark noses in, you can remove the handles, make glass doors, make them transparent, or even put on the profiles in here. Alrighty, I'm going to now pass you back to Nick.
Okay, so the next thing we're going to talk about is drawers. So we're going to start with, say, robe drawers. So setting up drawers in a Universal, it can be a bit overwhelming. Once you know how they work, they're really, really easy to use. You can do a lot of things with them. So we're going to cover the basics of it that you're most likely to use. So I'm going to start by removing the doors again. And we are going to add in a main division. And we'll set it to, I don't want a main division, sorry. I want a horizontal division. And we'll set it to 900 high. So I'll set the lower content to drawers. And as you'll see, it will produce 3 internal drawers without drawer fronts. We'll go to A1, L1 drawers. We can change the quantity there. We'll start with fronts. And because this is where we include and hide our drawer fronts. We can alter the height of the drawer fronts. With these boxes here, we can turn them off at a individual level. We can change our gaps. And we can change the assumed thickness of the carcass. But what we're going to do here is set our gap to 18, 18, not 81, 18, 18, and we'll set our bottom gap to 18, and we do not need a behind gap because we want them to be internal. You'll see that they still stick forward. We go back to cabinet details, go back to area 1, and we'll set our front recess as 18 mil because that's the thickness of the drawer face. And now we have internal drawers. Now this is a robe. We'll remove the handles. Under positioning at basic, we'll go back to here. We'll go back to fronts. I thought I unticked the handles, obviously I didn't. And we will change the gap. There we go. Thank you, Aaron. Fronts. So you can have a 30 mil gap there, plus 30. And then you have a classic wardrobe drawer setup. Now let's say you want this to be behind doors. So there's a few things we can do. We can go back to options and we can add in spacer rails, which this is easiest seen with 3D wireframe. You can add them in left and right. You can change the heights. You can set the recess. You can have the runner holes go through the spaces. In materials, under spaces, you can then change the materials. So say you want to, let's go with a unsorted 32 mil MDF spacer rail, if that's what you wanted to do. Let's say that you want an internal side with a cleat down the side. We'll turn those off. We call those fillers in this case. Currently it's just set at 16. They are just an internal. It is automatically on both, but you can say, I only want it to be on, we'll go with the left. Now the width will change to say 60. As you can see, that moves everything across. We can also add a mullion at the front and the back. And we'll go back to 3D textured. And you can see what's happened there. And now we'll recess all that about 100 mil. And that's make clearance for your hinges. It's probably better to have the mullion recessed and then the actual internal side not recessed. That looks a bit better. And then you just change your draw gap on the left-hand side to cover it. You can, of course, open up your drawers to show the customer that as well. Let's say you're doing what about a cutlery drawer? And you want it above a pop drawer or a utensil drawer in a kitchen. We'll go back to doors in a floor universal and we'll remove the div doors. We'll add in a horizontal division and we're going to set this at 550. I'm then going to also untick include. The division is still there, but it's not now a visible or machinable part. It's just a boundary. I'm also going to, at the same time, set that as a 20 mil front recess. So in both content areas, we'll put drawers. And I'll set our upper as 20 as well. So we'll start with our upper drawer. We'll change that to 1. We'll go to fronts, include and height. Set our values there. We'll say 20 at the top, 18, 18. We can probably leave that, and we don't need a enter 18. I'll get it right. There we go. And of course, we need to remove that handle. Now we'll have 2 pot drawers underneath. So we'll go to area 1, lower 1 drawers, and we'll change that to 2. We'll go to fronts, and we will click include and height. Now you'll see that there is still quite a large gap at the top there. But that's quite easy because we can just simply adjust the door gap to suit roughly where we need it to be. And now if we go to options, we'll open up those drawers. And then we'll open this one up here. Where am I going? Just there. And that's how you can put a drawer inside a drawer. That covers most of the features that you'll be using drawers for in a day-to-day purpose. If you have anything that you want to do more with drawers, let us know. We'll be looking into that in next week's webinar on the extension. We'll quickly go through shelves. Shelves are reasonably straightforward. Again, I am going to start by removing the doors. I'm going to go to area 1 and set content as shelves. It will make 3 shelves, evenly spaced. We can see it there. And again, these values are between the shelves, not accounting for the shelf thickness. Oh, it does account for the shelf thickness. So those values will change if they were, say, 32 mil thick. The gap. So currently, because it's an adjustable, of course, you have your gap either side. That gap is 1 mil either side. This is best seen in 3D wireframe with machining on. The hole quantity, 0 is continuous. 1 is, of course, 1. If we go back to 0, what I want to show you here is we will change our, say we want that one to be 552. Even though we've moved the shelf, continuous is going to stick to whatever hole spacing you have. So if you're using system 32, you're going to have that 32 mil hole spacing. It's not going to readjust all your holes based on the gaps between. It is going to be a continuous from a start point and from an end point. To change the start and end points of continuous shelf holes, we need to go to cabinet machining, shelf adjust plus, and that's where you can change the settings there. For example, you could move that shelf here down to 30 mil, but because it's continuous, starting from the bottom at 150, it wouldn't move the shelf holes down. So that's when you have to come to here. You'll also find shelf slots in shelf adjust. I believe, have I gone to the wrong spot? No, I haven't. No, it is there. Now, shelf slots, if we zoom in, they are just a machine line that you can set up in AEST. And whether you're using a bullnose or an end mill, you can cut a slot in the bottom of the shelf that sits over the shelf pin. We'll go back to A1, L1 shelves and have a quick look at the profiles. So we'll turn on profile 3. We'll select side 8 scallop. So we have a few different ones there. Side 8 are just default set sizes. Side config, you can alter the dimensions with a few different settings. It will bring up a window like this. You can change those. Side N, it's kind of like side config, except it just works off a set value. The larger the number, the larger the cutout. And then side slant will go left to right. This literally just slants the front edge left to right. Now let's add a few more shelves in. We'll say 5. And we'll recess the top one by another 200. Oh, we'll say just 200. We'll recess that one by 40. And we'll put an angle on them. So I'm going to make that one 20 degrees, and I'll make that one 15 degrees. And we'll make them fixed. We might make them all fixed actually. And there we go. Next thing I'm going to do is go to lip. I will add a lip to 4 and 5. I can change the offset, so we'll set it back 10 mil. You can change the height, and you can add the screw holes in the front edge of the shelf to screw the lip on. That just about covers shelves. There's not a lot more to them. You can change the materials. If you go materials panel, you can set your material there. The next thing I want to talk about is hanging rail. So we'll start with a tool, universal, like that. We'll put that in there. We'll get rid of the doors. And I'm going to add in a main division. A main division. And in area 1, I'm going to set 2 horizontal divisions. We'll come back to this in a minute. Area 2, we can go hanging, or we can go double hanging, but I might just leave it hanging a full height and go down to hanging rail here. You can change the distance from the top. You can set it from the front or the back. The offset is, if it's from the back, the offset's from the back, front from the front. There is no offset from the middle. You can change that, but it won't do anything. You can change the color, and you can change the hanger style. If you add cleats in, you can change dimensions of the cleats and change the edging. I'm going to go back to cabinet details, area 1. I'm going to set all of these as double hanging. I'm then going to untick that, untick those 2 there, and set these as 0. I'm going to go back to, and we'll start with area 1, upper 1. I'm going to move them to the back. I'm going to set my offset as 100. I'm then going to go to the middle, change the distance from the top to negative 2200. And then I'm going to go to the lower, distance from the top, negative 2200. Move them to the front and set the offset as 100. Now you've got a drying rack inside a cabinet. Let's say we want the middle ones to be stepped. We will change the front to 903, and then the middle to 1003. And you could theoretically do the same thing with the top. And that just about covers hang rail as well. There are many, many ways you can do things with universals. There's no correct way. It's just thinking outside the box. I'll hand you back to Aaron now.
Thank you for that. I'm going to talk about verticals. Now, verticals are impossibly the most overlooked, but essentially one of the most useful of the universal components. It allows you to create front panels and can be used to make boxes, fake bulkheads, rails, front panels, fake kickboards, and even inner struts. They've got a number of different uses, and I'm going to show you very simply by basically using one to create a common thing that I won't be going into the editing of it because that's in another topic and it was covered previously in a webinar, but you could use the verticals to create a bin. So I always like to remove the door. So the first thing I'm going to do is turn off the division doors, and I'm going to use a floor cabinet to do so. There's a number of features you can do with this. You can create a box with this by just putting in a division, by putting in the actual setting here in area 1 and changing this to verticals. And as you can see, it will create 1, 2, 3, 4 panels. So what that means is those 4 panels are extra panels. And if I show you this in actual 3D textured, and if I remove all the features of it, so I'm going to remove the ends, I'll remove the bench top and the kickboard. Now, universals have always got the ability to turn off everything. So if I turn on the back, you'll see it just creates basically a tube. Under verticals themselves, you can alter this thing. So you can turn off what you don't want. So I could turn off the left, the right, or the back. In essence, by putting the bottom on it, I could create a box. So I haven't been able to get something where I can put a door on the top, so I cannot create you a chest, but you can just put a top back on it and you would actually get a box object. You can also alter the shapes, so you can extend. This will extend a gap. But if you put a minus in here, you can extend the object itself. You can also recess parts of it. So I can recess the front of it. So I can recess it 200. And as you can see, it squeezes it up. This can be used to create things such as a divider in the middle of a panel. So if you're actually trying to create something unusual. I'm going to restart with that one and put down another floor vertical, just a floor universal. And I'm going to show you just one of the many things you can do with it. As we've mentioned before, universals can be used for so many features. So by turning off the division doors, like such, I can go up here to the horizontal divisions, putting in one horizontal division. I'm now going to turn that horizontal division so the 2 divisions are still there, but the main division between it isn't in existence. I'm now going to change this to being, say, 500. And if I put this back, you'll see where it actually is. By turning it off, I'm just going to put the upper to being the verticals. So as you can see, the vertical goes round. Now, as you can probably guess, if I made that higher, I could put in an extra rail. But what I'm using this one for is I'm going to put back the door on the front, and you could probably even put in a bin drawer because I'm going to create what could be used as a bin. By using the vertical, by turning off the left, the back, and the left and right, I could then edit this piece separately or put in a cutout into it. So it's actually a very useful object, and I can also make it to make rails, or even by extending it upwards, putting the door back on, putting a cell door in, include, going back up to the gaps, allowing for the 16 mil that has basically been removed of that division. So basically 3 plus 16, 3 mil plus the 16 of the panel, of the carcass, I mean. No, sorry. 3 minus 16, because I'm actually extending it upwards. And as you can see, there is a panel there with a door in front of it. And if I recess the door backwards, I could create a door with a panel above it, or even a bulkhead. I'm now going to go into grids. Now, grids were created to create wine racks, but they can be used for other uses, such as pigeonholes. I'm going to use a wall cabinet this time, just to basically use a wall universal. It's the only one we haven't touched on in this webinar. And it's just to show that it can be used for as well in the same functionality. So I always like, as we've been discussing, turning off the doors, because it allows me to see into the cabinet itself. It allows me to see what I'm doing. So by turning this off, I can now go up to the cabinet details, going into area 1. I'm just going to make it one grid. And the grid comes out like that. In the wireframe, it actually comes out as an interlocking piece. And I'll go into cabinet machining to show you exactly what I'm talking about with that. So I'm just going to go into, and I need to go into the machining in this area, view shelf 1, and it actually comes up like that. Each one of those interlocks into each other, into the divisions, and the divisions also come up like that. So each one locks in and creates the grid. Now I'm going to go to grid options, turn it back to 3D textured. Now in here, we have different methods of using it. We have size, quantity, or adjustable. Adjustable means that you can change between the different rows what the size is. That's all that means. So if I go into size, size is the minimum size at the side here. You've also have a recess from the front of division, you have a recess from the front of the shelf, and a recess from the rear. I will come into rotation in a moment. Quantity is worked out by changing whatever quantity you want in here, and it will calculate the sizes for you. You can see. And adjustable it uses the same thing as quantity, except I can change and edit each one of the rows and the columns separately. So if I want this row here to be only 20 millimeters, it will extend the top bit up because that's the overflow category. But as you can see, this one here is only 20. So I'm going to go back to size, and I'm just going to set it up as a normal standard cat thing, because I'm now going to talk about rotation. Now, when you rotate it, it is going to bring in another tab at the side here, which is called angled machining. So you can angle it at 45. You can even put in your own rotation point. But angled machining, I'm going to go with 45 because it's the most common. Now, with this, you really want it to be square, otherwise it's going to create these bits of overlap. If I go into angled machining, you can include screws, you can include back screws, you can include in both the division and the shelves, but you can also include the rebates. So if we go back to 3D wireframe, these are not cutting into there. But you could include, and this is automatically set up, so if you had a 45mm conic cutter, it would actually do the machining into it. And I'll show you that right now by going to Cabinet Machining, looking at the bottom. Did I turn those on? That's coming from below. So I'm going to go to the end left. There they are. So the problem is with this is you will need to change which side is actually the bottom is coming from. So the bottom currently is machining from the bottom of it. You will need to change that to top because the machining of it is actually coming from the below it. So if I now go back to bottom, there they are. So it will make 45-degree cuts in there to fit your basically the parts in. Now the last thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to here. I'm going to turn it back to 0 degrees to go to parts enabled. Now I could have done this on a 45-degree, but I think it's a little bit simpler to things. You can decide which parts get machined or even appear. So I can turn those off as I go. That is just some of the features of the Universal Cabinet. As earlier stated by my colleague Nick, the universals can be used to create so many different things. There is no right or wrong way to use them. They just basically can create things that you normally cannot create with anything else. If you have any issues or errors while trying to recreate what we've covered, please contact CabMaster Support via email at support@cabmastersoftware.com or call us on 03 9040 2000. You can also contact us via the chat on the website. We'll be diving further into universals next week, so we'll be sending out an email asking for suggestions on what universal cabinet features you'd like help with. We're going to go through the features of the universal that you suggest to us, as well as some other features we haven't covered today. I'm now going to go through and answer some of the questions in the question and answer. Please don't ask questions unrelated to the subject. If Nick doesn't answer your questions today, we will probably be looking at it next Friday. Okay, so if you've got any questions, please write them in.
Yep. So our first question, can the hinging be changed from left to right, i.e. 2 pairs? Yeah, so you can change left to right. And then if you want, you can't set one division to have a left door and a right door. You can go double division. Can you show them that, Aaron? And maybe swapping divisions left to right might be good to demonstrate too. Division upper. Yep, there you go. And now you've got 2 divisions there, which you can swing a door off either side. And that's where you change the hinge side. By hinging off the bottom for a tilt door. Yes, hinging off the bottom for a tilt door.
So turning hinging off the bottom for a tilt door. Basically, as you can see, I've moved the cell door to being the bottom. So if I open that up a bit, you can see that the hinge need to be placed in. So the problem is with this is the hinges are currently set as in this. So you basically need to turn them on. You need to basically go and basically just turn them on as you normally would do hinges. I'm going to put that one on. And as you can see, there are your hinges at the bottom. Now, with this, you can also then turn the door, and you can do this in both division and also cell doors. You just click on that, turn it to the top. And there's the top hinges, bottom hinges. Now, the handle will, of course, need to be moved wherever you want it to be. The handles, of course, can always be moved by basically going to door handles, changing its position. Now, in the individual positioning, you actually have a cell door one and a division door one. So you can actually alter the position either on a cell door or on a division. And changing the hinges themselves is as easy as basically going to the hinges and changing where they're located in here. So the hinge changes just as normal. Oh, we need to put in the plate. We need to put in the plates as well. I do apologize about that. The Blum mounting plate screw. And it is actually, weirdly enough, it's in the pull down, not in the lift, where this kicks in. And there they are there. And if you change it to the other side, by clicking on here again, by going up to the top, you'll see they're up in the top. There they are. All right.
At the moment, there is no allowance for variation in thickness when you're nesting the grid. It is a good idea, so we will suggest that. For the meantime, of course, you just have to measure the thickness of the material manually and alter the material thickness to ensure that the parts slot together correctly. Excellent. Well, it looks like we have no other questions. So we'll send out our email campaign asking for suggestions for cabinets for next week. Till then, have a good weekend.